Well, Donna Mack, it is great to have you with us today to talk about tips to care for yourself and reduce stress. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Well, Donna, let's start at the very beginning. Why is caring for yourself and reducing stress so important?
Oh, wow. It's just, it sounds kind of trite, but it's just like what they tell you when you get on the airplane, on an airplane, which we're not doing right now because of COVID, but um, put on your own oxygen mask first so that you'll be able to help those around you.
Yes.
Um, in order to be able to give to others, you got to be able to have something in your own tank first.
That's such a great example. So many people, I think, feel like they have to take care of others first. But if you're not taking care of yourself first, you're really no good to anyone else. And can you give us some practical ways to do that? Just some simple tips, even that you may practice, of how can you get into a better frame of mind, for example, when you wake up in the morning?
Probably the first thing that comes to my mind is gratitude.
Mm.
And according to neuroscience, it's almost impossible for negativity and gratitude to coexist. It doesn't mean that we can't vacillate between the two, but typically they don't really hang out together. And maybe just starting your day and ending your day with three things that you're grateful for, and make them unique. Don't make them the same three things every time. Some people do that in the form of a gratitude journal. Some people start out their day with prayer or meditation, and just focus on what they're grateful for. Um, Laughter is amazing. It produces endorphins, and I know that a lot of people have to watch their budgets right now during COVID, and but I would say, find a funny movie, listen to listen to a comedian, or if you just have a friend that gets you, somebody that you can just laugh with from deep in your being. Laughter really is great medicine. Um, just surrounding yourself with people that you care about and who care about you. It's, I think sometimes when we're under stress, it's very easy to, at least I've seen this in my own life, and I think we all have. If we're feeling needy, we maybe feel a little parasitic, and but people's needs ebb and flow. Maybe I feel needy right now, um, but somebody, a true friend will be able to give to me, and then I in turn will be able to give to them when they're in a season of need, or a season of maybe stress, or just going through a hard time. And that's how friendships and caring relationships work.
That is such a good point you make, especially about gratitude and laughing. Those are two things that are free. They cost you nothing, but practicing those give you a real sense of perspective of the real meaning that you have and the value that you have to others. And let me shift gears a little bit, Donna. How does a person know if they're under stress?
Oh my gosh. Your mouth gets dry. Your mouth might get dry. You might perspire. You might feel like your heart is racing. You hmm, just feeling anxious, kind of wanting to pace or break into a run. Um, so any of those, you may have a difficulty sleeping. And I think if you can reframe that, sometimes there are certain situations where you can reframe that and look at it as, oh, this is excitement. Because honestly, your body, you're pumping out cortisol, and your body can't always tell the difference in excitement and stress. And if you can kind of reframe it as a good thing, it does kind of help calm the system a lot of times. Um, Now you've got me. Now I'm sitting here going back to, what else can we do to reduce stress? Oh my gosh, sing, dance, dance around the house, be silly. Those things don't cost anything either. And and focus on what you can do. So often I think that when we get stressed, it's so easy to, I don't know, to feel trapped and to look at all the things that aren't going our way or all the limitations that we feel. And I think it's important to start with one thing that you know you can do, and go from there. Build on that one thing that you can offer to other people. Go be of service.
You mentioned too about how people can detect stress, but what effects can stress have on the body? What are some of the negative impacts that stress can really do to someone?
They can create a whole host of diseases. They can cause sleep disturbance. They can affect, they can create high blood pressure situations, all kinds of conditions. They can make people more prone to type 2 diabetes, to all kinds of autoimmune disorders. Um, and sleep disturbance can create a whole host of other problems too. Sleep disturbance can make us more prone to dementia, and it can also create issues with blood sugar and that type thing, and it makes us a whole lot less attentive, and we can have brain fog, and again, it just exacerbates disease processes.
Let's say someone watching recognizes they have some of those symptoms. They're not sleeping well, they're overly irritable, whatever the case may be. Who should they talk to about that?
Oh wow. And there are a number of people you can talk to. You can talk to, I would say, a trusted friend, a counselor, some kind of mental health professional, your physician, um, family, anybody that you would view as a support type person.
Okay.
And you know what? And if you can't think of anybody like that to talk to, journal. Journal your feelings. Get some of that out, because sometimes if you just feel reactive and you can't break it down and pick it apart to figure out, okay, what exactly am I reacting to, just the act of journaling will kind of, it'll get that out there, and it'll help you to deconstruct maybe, and get a better handle on what your actual source of stress is.
And then for some people that may not know, when you talk about journaling, basically, whether it's a sheet of paper or a booklet, just to write down your thoughts. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing?
Absolutely.
Just to release that on paper, as you said, can be very therapeutic just to get it off your chest and onto the paper.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, Don, if you're comfortable, would you share a personal story about when you have experienced stress and how you've overcome it?
um, oh, there are a lot of examples I could give you, but I will tell you that a few years ago, I was going through a time where I felt like I had one stressful situation after another that would just hit me. And it was as if I were standing, uh, like in the ocean up to maybe my chest, and a big stress wave would come up and knock me over, and I'd be like sputtering and choking and coughing. And about the time I would get back up on my feet, another wave would come back and knock me down. It was just, life was just kind of happening that way for a while, and um, ultimately it did negatively impact my health. I wound up being diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. And so I did learn about some of the tips that I've shared. And basically, I mean, I have a great doctor, who gave me a lot of those tips and more. And I also have a background in counseling, so I knew some of this, even if I maybe wasn't practicing it as much. I What it came down to is I had to learn how to change my diet and eat cleaner, because that can also impact our stress. Caffeine can negatively impact our stress, as can a lot of food additives. So I had to change how I ate. And honestly, I had to cut some toxic people out of my life. And a couple of those people were really close to me, people who at the time were very dear to me. But I have found that since I've kind of distanced myself from those people, the relationships were really very toxic and pretty one sided because I I was giving to those people and not to myself first. And uh, believe me, they would take everything I could give and then some. And so, sometimes we have to distance ourselves from relationships because they're not mutually beneficial.
You mentioned the word toxic people. Some people may not be familiar with that. What do you mean by somebody who is toxic?
Um, for me, somebody who is toxic, a toxic relationship to me is a relationship where mutual love and respect are not reciprocated, where somebody is always asking me to do something for them, expecting me to do for them, or where somebody's expecting you to do for them, but they don't give back in return. It's always about them, and it all the energy flows out of out of the person in question, and in this case it was me, to that other person or those other people. And so I was kind of filling up their bucket, but nobody was filling up mine.
Yes, which can,
And
yeah.
it was a really really tough time. But hey, it was pretty painful for a while, but oh my gosh, I have so much more energy. And to identify some of those people, you got to think of, how do I feel after I'm around that person? Do I feel drained or do I feel energized? And keep the people that you feel energized with, and give to those relationships. But the people that are just siphoning all your love and and your goodness, um, and your spirit, just stay away from those people.
That's really good advice about people who energize you, build you up, people that sap the energy from you, tear you down. I think many of our viewers can really benefit from that. Talk about exercise. What role, Donna, does exercise have in helping reduce stress?
Exercise is great because it helps you produce a lot of feel good hormones, gives you a great sense of peace. It also lowers some of the more deadly, if you will, or harmful hormones like cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's okay if you need it to respond quickly, one time to a really tough situation. It it's great if you, I don't know, have to chase a bad guy or something, or if you have a child, a toddler that's about to run out in the street, and you uh, have to sprint to catch that child and be sure they're safe. It's a good thing to have then, but whenever you live with it chronically over a long period of time, it becomes really detrimental. So exercise helps to reduce that, because eventually, if you live with chronic stress enough, your body just goes into kind of an autopilot mode, and it just cranks out cortisol like nobody's business. And that's not how we're designed. We're designed to have that again as kind of an emergency, and for emergency situations. So it it kind of puts the quail on that. Being out in nature, like walking, is a great form of exercise. Also, if you have a pet, or if you can like borrow uh, a friend or a family member's pet, they're great for lowering your cortisol levels and for giving you a lot of feel good hormones and lowering your blood pressure too. So it's exercise is wonderful.
That's good. Let's say when a person is under stress, they may feel more and more isolated. Do you suggest they share what they're experiencing with someone else, or what other options do they have available to feel less isolated?
I think it is important to share, and for some people, sharing may be difficult, and it may be difficult for a lot of different reasons. Um, right now, as we're recording this, we are in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And I know that there are a lot of situations where people have become isolated, and there may be even some people who are dealing with domestic abuse, whether that's emotional abuse or physical abuse or whatever. And I know that a lot of times abusers will tend to isolate the people that they target. Um, and it doesn't even mean that those people are aware that they're doing that. So for some people, that's a very lonely time, and they may not have anybody that they feel safe reaching out to. So again, if you can journal, if you can write your feelings down, I think that's wonderful. There are also all kinds of mental health hotlines that you can reach out to get mental health counseling. I know that Tarrant County Mental Health Services is a great resource, as is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. And I think, during times like that, reach out to a mental health professional, reach out to a friend or a family member, somebody that you know is on your side. And if you have felt kind of distant from those people in the past, or recently, but that a lot of people are kind of estranged from their family, especially if they're in abusive situations. But you know what? If you do come from a family of origin that is supportive, they will help you. It may be kind of humbling for you, but they're going to love you. Chances are, a faith family. If you come from a faith background, there are a lot of times that you can find someone on staff at a church or a synagogue or temple that is there to provide care.
Those are good ideas. Going back to something you mentioned earlier, I want to go back to that. Let's say someone watching is always concerned about those around them, but never takes the time to think about and care for themselves. Why can that be so dangerous to them?
Because you forget who you are.
Yes.
It's never a good thing to forget who you are. It's never a good thing to forget who you are. You're put on this earth with gifts and talents and abilities and ways to bless other people that are unique to you. And it's really sad. I mean, I remember being in a situation where I would wake up and just think, dear God, everybody else's agenda is on my plate today. And when is it going to be my turn to fulfill my agenda for the day, or even my agenda for an hour? And what do I have to look forward to? Because, what do I have to look forward to? Because it's all based on somebody else's agenda. That's a really painful way to live. That probably wasn't the level of answer that you were looking for, but it's very real, and it's not a good way to live. And again, you were given gifts and abilities and talents to bless yourself and to bless other people, and there's nobody like you. Right. So it's really important to stay in touch with who you are. And then that comes down to first step again is do what you can do. Everybody's got something that they are good at, and don't worry about all the, if there are 100 things, don't worry about the 99 things you can do. Find the one thing that you can do and get out there and do it.
I like what you said about not losing who you are. And it goes back to the dignity of each person. And again, as I will often tell people, look, I can't know exactly how you feel, but I can share some experiences that we've shared together. And so I can walk alongside you through this without knowing exactly what you've been through. And I think when people realize that they do have value, that even though they may feel like they're a failure, they can be a person of value, and they can always press that reset button and realize my past does not dictate my future. You know,
Absolutely.
what would you say to people that may be watching this right now thinking, I have failed so much, I've brought on so much stress, a lot of these may be problems I've created. How can I begin to see myself in a new way to not judge that my future will be like my past?
I think it's a matter of reframing, meaning to look at the situation in a different way and see what you can. Okay, if you find yourself in a certain situation, maybe to ask yourself, what can I learn from this opportunity? What does this opportunity have to teach me? Or what can I how can I use this situation in my life, what I'm going through now, to bless somebody else in the future, or to ensure, I mean, just like I'm talking to you today to say, hey, here's how I messed up. Here's how I maybe didn't make all the best choices, even though my heart was in the right place. And, I sincerely at the time thought I was loving other people the best way I knew how. Um, I'm in a position now to say, the beauty of it is, hey, you get to start over. Oh my gosh. Um, and you get to be whoever you want to be. It's, you get a fresh start. And not everybody can say that. So I just look at it as, it's a new beginning. It's a new adventure. What can I learn? What can I give? What can I offer somebody as a result of whatever this is that I'm walking through right now?
So good. Donna, how can a person find the time to do the things that bring them joy?
Um, I think you have to be intentional about it. And I think everybody can set aside probably 15 minutes a day. Don't start with anything huge. Just start with one thing, whether that's keeping a gratitude journal or a gratitude list. And again, make those things unique. Um, Eventually, feeling you're going to start feeling better. You're going to start feeling good from going through those motions, and it's going to pay off, and you're going to want to do that more. But you have to be intentional.
Yes. Now, I didn't mention this at the beginning, Donna, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but you are blind.
Correct.
You have a seeing eye dog, and I admire you, and I asked you to be on this because I love your courage, but also you've overcome many things that I will never have to, nor many other people will have to overcome. Why, given what might be called a limitation, do you find so much joy in life, and how do you keep a positive perspective?
um, I when I was okay, I was born 2.5 months premature. And at the time, I was given a 2% chance to survive.
Wow.
If I survived for the first 24 hours, they're going to bump up that to a 10% chance. And for every additional 24 hours after that I lived, they would increase the percentages by 10%.
Okay.
At the age of 3 months, there was this renowned pediatric neurologist who informed my parents that I was totally blind and a vegetable. And there may be some people who would concur with that original diagnosis. But, he said that I would never be able to see, that I might be able to take a few steps, learn a few words, but that I would never live independently. And I I was always legally blind, but like I could see enough to read print,
Yes.
like newsprint. Had to hold it really close. I could ride a bike. I wanted to be an artist. I drew phenomenally well. And then when I was 12, because of complications related to my prematurity, my vision went down the tubes. And I always attended public school. I graduated when I was 16. And I will tell you that it was instilled in me from the very beginning that I was put on the earth for a purpose
Mm.
um, because my mom's doctor came in and she had a really, really difficult labor with me, and we both almost died. And basically, the doctor said, "You and this little girl have a purpose, or neither one of you would be here."
Wow.
And that's just always been instilled in me very strongly. But I think everybody has a purpose. And I don't, when my vision did tank, I remember making this conscious choice because as a kid, I was kind of shy. And I remember seeing that there were people who had previously been familiar with me. I mean, they could have been classmates.
Right.
And most people were pretty cool, but there were the occasional people who would they treated me differently. They spoke differently to me once I couldn't see them. And I just determined at that point that I was going to develop enough of a personality that they would be able to see me for me and not as a walking disability. And that if I wanted to have any kind of life at all, I would have to, move away from my adolescent self consciousness enough to be able to make the first move in any kind of social situation, or I wouldn't have a life.
Yes.
So sometimes you just have to be intentional because you don't want to die. And
Yeah.
my spirit would have died.
Mm. The big takeaway, Donna, that I heard you say was for people to remember they were put here for a purpose. And once you find that you have purpose, that begins to help reduce the stress and you take better care of yourself because of the impact that you can have. Donna, thank you so much. This has been valuable time, and I hope each person watching this takes away some really powerful points that you can take care of yourself and reduce stress and follow what Donna has said to do. Donna, Mack, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Derek.